But first, when Hamas terrorists swarmed into Israel on October 7 and slaughtered more than 1,000 Jews, they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew Israel would retaliate with the fury of a nation defending its right to exist. And they knew that Gazans would suffer greatly. They also knew the Western media would dutifully republish Hamas propaganda with the scepticism of a Labrador being offered a snack. And they knew that Israel's standing with the international community would be smashed as a result. They even knew that Keir Starmer would eventually crawl out from behind a lectern to do exactly what they wanted, reward terrorism with statehood. And lo, it came to pass. France has already promised to recognise a Palestinian state in September, despite the awkward detail that Gaza is still run by genocidal maniacs and Jewish hostages are still rotting in tunnels. And now UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, well, he's joined the conga line of capitulation. Starmer says he too will recognise a Palestinian state in September unless Israel stops the war they didn't start against the group that still holds Israelis hostage. So that's where we're at now. Hostage negotiations now come with ultimatums directed at the victims. Now, at this point, I could say the Brits have thrown Israel under a bus, but that would not be accurate. The Brits have thrown Israel under a double-decker bus. And I might add, they've thrown Israel's enemies the keys. Imagine Roosevelt in 1940 telling Churchill, make peace with Hitler or I'll recognise the Greater German Reich. And yet that's exactly what Starmer is doing to Israel. Starmer gave an address last night, and credit where credit's due, he started well enough.
On the 7th of October 2023, Hamas perpetrated the worst massacre in Israel's history. Every day since then, the horror has continued. The hostages are still being held today.
Bang on, Keir Starmer. Well said. So naturally, the next logical step should be demanding Hamas surrender and return the hostages, right? Until that happens, there's nothing more to be said. Or what about the suffering of the Palestinian people, a very real issue? Well, that too is an issue for Hamas. They're the elected government of Gaza. All the pressure should be on them. This is so obvious, even the Arab League understands it. A group of nations that includes Saudi Arabia, Egypt and Qatar released a statement overnight calling on Hamas to immediately surrender. Now, I don't want to give too much credit to the Arab League. They also condemned the October 7 attacks for the first time overnight. Only took them 662 days to work out that taking women and children from their beds as hostages is, wrong. What a world. And yet, even so, they at least understood the fault for this mess, and the solution to this mess lies at the blood-soaked feet of Hamas. Keir Starmer, however, is not so clear-eyed. Starmer wants Israel, not Hamas, to end the war. And he wants Israel, not the terrorists, to take responsibility for organising a ceasefire with people who don't know the meaning of the word cease. Starmer's bottom line, if Israel doesn't stop trying to defeat the terrorists, he'll recognise a state run by the terrorists.
The Palestinian people have endured terrible suffering. Now, in Gaza, because of a catastrophic failure of aid, we see starving babies, children too weak to stand, images that will stay with us for a lifetime.
Ah, yes, the images, like the image plastered all over the front page of the New York Times, purporting to show the world just how badly the Palestinians are suffering. Except the paper admitted today that the image they used to portray starvation, well, it was a lie. They said, and I quote, "We recently ran a story about Gaza's most vulnerable civilians, including Mohammed Zakaria al-Maktoua, who is about 18 months old and suffers from severe malnutrition. We've since learned new information, including from the hospital that treated him and his medical records, and have updated our story to add context about his pre-existing health problems. This additional detail gives readers a greater understanding of his situation." Indeed, it gives a much greater understanding of a whole lot of the situation. After generating a tsunami of hate towards Israel with that terrifying picture, the New York Times now quietly admits that the boy had a pre-existing condition which made him look a lot worse. They misled the entire world in order to make Israel look bad, and having been caught, issued a non-apology, really, knowing that full well that that apology will not have anywhere near the reach the original story had. That picture, it went around the world and was referenced by our own Prime Minister when interviewed on the ABC at the weekend. The picture used to demonise Israel. Powerful, heartbreaking, and completely misleading. And the New York Times responded with, oops.
So today, as part of this process towards peace, I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September, unless the Israeli government takes substantive steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza, agree to a ceasefire, and commit to a long-term sustainable peace, reviving the prospect of a two-state solution.
Yeah, I have questions. Should Israel agree to a ceasefire without getting back their hostages, or after getting back their hostages? Should Israel agree to a ceasefire while Hamas is still ruling in Gaza, or after Hamas have been decimated? Should Israel shake hands with the Palestinian Authority while it's still handing out terrorism bonuses to anyone who murders Jews, or after they stop that practice? Eventually, belatedly, Starmer did turn his attention to Hamas. And as you listen to how Starmer addresses Hamas, just take note of his very first word. Here it is.
Meanwhile, our message to the terrorists of Hamas is unchanged and unequivocal. They must immediately release all of the hostages, sign up to a ceasefire, disarm, and accept that they will play no part in the government of Gaza. And we'll make an assessment in September on how far the parties have met these steps.
The key to Starmer's moral fog is that he makes demands first of Israel, and then he addresses the terrorists, beginning with the word, you heard it, meanwhile. That's the word he uses to transition from berating a sovereign democracy to lightly scolding child-murdering terrorists. Israel must end the conflict, agree to a ceasefire, etc., etc. Meanwhile, our message to the terrorists of Hamas is, meanwhile. See, this is my problem with the way the West looks at the conflict in Gaza. The actions of Hamas and the ongoing captivity of hostages always seems to be a footnote, an addendum, an inconvenience, a mild irritant. Meanwhile, honestly, why would Hamas release the hostages? Every Jew still trapped in Gaza's underground labyrinth is leverage, and right now, that leverage seems to be working beautifully. Donald Trump gets it. Here he was overnight saying exactly what Starmer refuses to understand.
Is there any use at all in pressuring Israel now to come to some sort of longer-term solution?
Well, you could make the case that you're rewarding people, that, you know, you're rewarding Hamas if you do that. And I don't think they should be rewarded. So I'm not in that camp, to be honest.
Keir Starmer concluded his address by saying he would recognise a non-existent Palestinian state because that's what the British people want.
So this is the way forward. We will keep working with all our international partners to end the suffering, get aid flooding into Gaza, and deliver a more stable future for the Middle East. Because I know that is what the British people desperately want to see.
I don't know about you, but I wouldn't have thought Israel should compromise their own security in order to appease what Keir Starmer says is the appetite of the British people, or any other nation for that matter. Of course, here in Australia, our own government appears to be edging towards Keir Starmer's position, perhaps more carefully. Anthony Albanese is insisting a two-state solution can only come after Hamas has surrendered and released hostages.
To the vision of the two-state solution. In immediate sense, we continue to call for a ceasefire. We continue to call for hostages to be released. We continue to say that Hamas can have no role in a future Palestinian state.
But at the same time, Penny Wong has called on other countries to join Australia in signing a document calling for recognition of a Palestinian state. This while Hamas remain in power and hostages are still being held. Government frontbencher Anika Wells said today that recognition of a Palestinian state was a matter of when, not if. She said it could happen, and I quote, pretty soon. It's a dangerous game condemning terrorists while at the same time promising to give them what they want. It's a game our government should not be playing. One more thing. Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005. October 7 didn't happen because Palestinians were denied a state. It happened because they were given one. That Western governments, including our own, can't understand that beggars belief.